Okay, well,
There.
okay, welcome to the um, March 7th, 2023 session of Tangerine SDR and a ham technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been doing a number of small projects and doing a little bit of 3D printing, so that's kept me busy for a while. I'm getting going on some programming projects, and it's interesting how stuff that you've done a lot of becomes rusty if you don't use it all the time. So that's it for me. And next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Steve. Things are going fine here. Just trying to keep up with everything for the ham site workshop and working on this paper and all the other things that are going on. It's all coming along. W2NF, back to net.
Okay, very good. Next on the list is Michael, AAAK. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, thanks very much. Greeting to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. And next on the list is, well, let's see, just moved around. Would be Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead.
Oh, not a lot to report. I had my students put a couple of things into production on the Personal Space with a Station Network Central Control System website. So instead of having big clunky icons, we have now small clunky icons. And also under observations, there's a much more sophisticated filter for searching, which we're going to need when we start to get a lot of data out there. You can do geofencing by lat long and some things like that. So anybody who's interested in that, go take a look at that if you would, please. So that's all we have. Back to net.
Very good. Next on the list is Bob, N5BRG. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, just a lot of things going on here for me, still working on projects that relate to this stuff, but not anything to brag about yet. So back to you, Dave, N5BRG.
Okay. Next on the list, we have Dave, and that Dave's a awful common name on this list. The Dave that's just got the name Dave, go ahead.
Oops, can we get it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
W2HMT, Dave Lewis. I hang around, read the mail there. I checked in tonight because I'd like to know who it is that's most in charge of the magnetometer part of the project. And the reason for wanting to do that is find out if he knows that Jules K2KGJ has been quite ill, and I just thought people ought to know that he could use some cheering up.
Oh, we do. We were aware of Jules's situation. And
You are, okay.
Yes. And probably the magnetometer guy that's worked the most with Jules is Dave, KD0EAG, and Hillman Kim, who just showed up.
And I did send Jules. I sent Jules a couple QSL cards last week in the mail with a personal note to him. So I know a few people said they might do that on this list. But if you have other suggestions on how to cheer him up, we'd be happy to listen.
Yeah, I'm quite a close neighbor to him, but I don't really know what the issue is, what his physical condition is. But I have heard from other people that he's really very ill.
Yeah, he told me he was diagnosed with melanoma.
Okay.
So, yeah, as I said, last week we discussed it a little bit, and I know the suggestion was made to maybe send him some QSL cards from the group, and which I did do. But as I said too, if you have other suggestions on how to do any cheering up, we would be happy to listen.
No, I just didn't want it to completely have gotten by everybody, that he'd sort of dropping out, but nobody knew quite why. I didn't want that to be the situation. So
Thank
obviously
you.
you know what's going on, so that's good.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, Dave. So,
Other than that, I just read the mail, as the saying goes. My first contact with ionospherics was watching the solar eclipse in 1963 and taking along some rigs up to southern Canada and seeing how much would come down through the D layer from the dark zone. But it was all very non-scientific in the sense that I didn't have any single strength meters or anything to corroborate that. But lifelong interest. Also spent some time working with Bernard Vonnegut and Charlie Moore, the team that spent a lot of time in the 50s, 60s, and 70s figuring out about lightning and how the electrification gets in the clouds and where it goes, and again, ionospheric effects there too. So just generally interested in what's going on. Thank you. Back to Nat.
very good. Sounds interesting. Next on the list is Yardish, KN6 VIS. Go ahead, Yardish.
Hello, my name is Adarsh.
Oh,
I'm a high schooler actually. I'm on my bus back from school right now. I just got into ham radio like a few months ago. I'm pretty into meteorology and all that side stuff as well. So I thought I'd learn some stuff.
we kind of lost the end of that. It garbled a little bit.
So, I joined.
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. I might not be so strong, but I just joined ham science just because I got into ham radio a few months back, and I thought this would be pretty interesting to learn about some new things and I guess get more involved.
Well, you're just the kind of person that Nathaniel likes to see show up, right,
Mhm.
Nathaniel?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, we love having new people show up, and we love having new young people who are interested. So it's really nice to have you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
What got you into ham radio?
So we have like this competition thing called Science Olympiad, and one of the things I was doing was about like Wi-Fi lab, and it was about like radio waves, and we have to build antennas and stuff and test it, and like some of the stuff we had to learn was really related to ham radio, and then I kind of discovered this and kind of jumped on the rabbit hole, and I ended up here.
Well, welcome.
Yes. Oh, okay, we'll go on down the list. Next on the list is Dan in for XWE. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Dave, and good evening, everyone. Not much going on. Worked a little bit on scripts this week. Seems like I do a little bit every week. Kind of went through and made sure everything was still working. And there was, I think about 3 weeks ago, an upgrade to a new version of WSJTX. One other interesting thing is I actually grew up in northwestern Ohio, about 50 miles north of Dayton. And I graduated in 1966, so I guess I've been out of high school about 57 years. Anyway, I did receive a notice. Our class is going to have a reunion that is going to be based around the eclipse in 2024. And it just so happens that where we grew up is located pretty much right on the path. So
Very
it's
good.
going to be a big event.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Anyway, that's it from here. Back to you, Dave.
Well, very good. Hope you can go and enjoy that. And next on the list is David McGaw in one HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone. Primary thing this week has been shoveling snow and snow blowing it.
Mm.
We got quite a few inches of it though. Near to me, we got a foot. I got about 6 inches, but it was heavy, wet stuff, and it was the second storm in succession. So looks like winter here again. After we had an early spring. Working on the regular projects, we've got students working on our AM Doppler and working on Yeoman's project and all. And of course, working on the presentation for HAMSci, which is coming together. We'll give an update on our endeavors in the MF band, shall I say. And so I guess that's about it. Oh, the one thing is I'm still trying to put together the system for the Max 10 development, and being slow about getting the proper operating systems and things like that. I had a network problem today, but these things happen. Computers, as someone I knew way back when, Sidney Marshall said, computers is an inexact science. Boy, was he right. Back to net.
Okay, next on the list is Gary, AF 8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Spending the last week getting ready for some of the details in the HAMSci workshop coming up, and also was reminded that 2 months after that will be the Xenia Hamvention. So we'll get one ahead passed, and we'll be jumping into the next one soon. I'll also take a minute to remind anyone, if there's anyone who's supplying a poster for the HAMSci workshop, a gentle reminder that we're trying to get those in this week and get them to printing if you want them printed at Scranton. Second thing, I want to also say greetings to Adarsh. I'm glad you joined us. Your experience of getting into ham radio in high school is very common. A lot of us on this call, I'm sure, did the very same thing. For me, that was about 46 years ago. And the really cool thing about this hobby, there are things that I did 46 years ago with my license that still I find pretty exciting today. But yet there's been a lot of new things that I've picked up and some that I've dropped. But just like HAMSci here, there's always new things to pick up along the way, even 4.5 decades later. So you've landed in a good spot, and I hope you continue to join us. That's it. Back to net, Dave.
Okay, next on the list is, let's see. Well, Dylan R. Go ahead, Dylan. Mike, your mic is muted. There you
Yes, doing a lot of work on the case. I got one quote submitted today for checking out 3D printing it in metal, and I honestly thought it was going to be less than this, but the quote for that was $3,100. So I saw that on, I was quite taken aback by that price. I'm like, I kind of thought it would be less than that. So gonna give up on that, and I'm still waiting on the quote to come back for the CNC files, and hopefully I'll get that tomorrow, but we'll see. I'm just gonna so and then I had a couple other questions regarding the case. Does anyone know specifically how big it is, the overall dimensions? Mainly just the width and the length. And then if anyone remembers if it was 2 or 3 of the processing units that needed, if there were 2 or 3 processing units that needed a block to come down to contact the CPU or the processor here. So I think those were my only 2 questions. But other than that, doing good. Just went to Pennsylvania to get a quick look at the Hamsci convention meetup. Nah, not really. We did go to Pennsylvania, but picked up some items. But don't have anything else, so I'll send it back to that control.
Okay, well, Scotty's the one that could answer your questions the best. I don't know. We can ask Tom when we get around to him and see if he has any answers for you, Dylan. Next on the list is Hyomin Kim, KD's 2 MCR. Go ahead, Hyomin.
Yep. Hi, everyone. There's no big update this week. So I don't know if I caught what Dave was saying when you were talking about lightning, but one thing that remind me is that there's a particular type of magnetometers that can measure much higher frequency than what we do. I mean, our magnetometer, the sampling rate is way lower. It's 1 second samples per second, but there are different type of magnetometer that can grab like much higher magnetic field frequencies. This particular frequency that I've been working on was ELF magnetometer, extremely low frequency. So the interesting thing about the measurement is that it also measured like Schumann resonance. I think, you know, this is pretty well known to even radio community, I guess, Schumann resonances. The fundamental frequency is 7.8. The next one is 14, 20, 27, 33 hertz. That's mainly because the lightning causes this lightning signatures is captured between the ground and the ionosphere cavity. So it can be measured all over the places. It's really prevalent if you look at the magnetometer data in the ELF range, so that you can actually, you know, track where the lightning comes from. I mean, this is not my field, so I can't really tell much about it, but you can actually infer the ionospheric conditions as well as maybe climate, and there are a lot of things that can be done with lightning. But anyways, that just occurred to me, ELF. By the way, ELF stands for extremely low frequency, and then there's a different frequency range called ULF, which is ultra low frequency. That's actually lower than extremely low frequency. Then there's another interesting frequency range that space physicists use is VLF, very low frequency. That is mainly associated with the particles and waves that are occurring in space plasmas. So people look at the VLF range also. So just interesting thought. So back to the net.
Okay. Next on the list is Joe, W7 LUX. Are you still covered with snow?
Still shoveling, and yeah, it's a hassle, but slowly arms are getting pretty weak, but we're working at it. The grape is still collecting data, and almost every day recently, I've seen some kind of disturbance, either an M or even an X-class solar flare. So they're certainly happening, and my grape system is certainly picking them up. Thank you, Dave.
Very good. Next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. It's been a very busy week for me. I'm mainly working on my post-risk area. I will get them to you very shortly. We also had what was detected on the VLF system were some risers and an increased occurrence of whistlers. We're getting into the season, the spring season of increased whistler incidents. Usually March, April are the times of month or times of the year with a much higher incidence of whistlers, and they're what I've picked up, they were pretty weak, and the reason why that I didn't pick them up last year was because of that ground or that mains hum problem that was drowning everything out. But now with that eliminated, with a much lower noise floor, I'm able to detect a lot more whistlers. We just had a whistler come through, a fairly weak one around midnight last night, and also with the CME or the geomagnetic activity that we had last week. We detected some risers as well during that, and which was nice. Those were a little bit stronger than the whistlers, but it was nice to be able to actually detect those. There were a couple of risers, and I also attended the local ham club meeting last week, and I played an audio sample of one of the risers over the mic for everyone to hear. So yeah, I was really excited about that. One of the things that I was kind of focusing on was mesospheric lightning and its VLF signature, which is actually pretty interesting. So there is one paper that basically says that lightning discharges with continuing currents exhibit a ELF tail or a what they call an ELF slow tail, which is a delayed ELF component that it often is, or the stronger the magnitude, the farther the originating stroke is. And there's also another paper that says lightning with continuing currents is often associated with mesospheric lightning, elves and sprites, but mainly elves. So I'm doing a little work on that. I'm going through the data, and it's nice that the data is GPS time stamped, and I could pick out the individual spheric, and we're dealing with milliseconds here, milliseconds to microseconds. So the time is actually very, very critical. But with with GPS timestamp data, you get a lot of accuracy. And to mention what Hillman said, there are a lot of projects on VLF.it that concern the Schumann resonances. So the Earth Ionosphere Waveguide, one of its modes, one of its resonance modes, is around is around 7 hertz, and if you have an appropriate receiver, or instrument, you could actually detect those. And what was interesting is during the Tonga eruption, I mentioned in my poster last year the um, the signal level was much higher in those resonance modes due to the increased lightning. So yeah, that was actually pretty neat. Other than that, that's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay, and next on the list, we have Dave KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave. Microphone?
Had to find the button. Can you hear me?
Yes,
hope-
we can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm just plugging away at things. Haven't heard any. I still need more information about what's going on with the magnetometers to be able to help people. But otherwise, nothing special here.
Okay, and next on the list is Phil. Phil, go ahead. Whoop, you pushed the mic twice. There
Maybe
you
too
go.
many times. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just, I'm still a new guy checking in, just hoping to be useful. That's all I got. So,
Okay.
know.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Next on the list is Terry. W0ASP. Go ahead, Terry.
Hey y'all, this is Terry W0ASP. Just checking in. Little report on the ionosphere today or this week. The FOF2s over Boulder have been extremely high, bordering on 14 megahertz. So much so that I've had to increase the scan rate of the instrument, and that's producing some pretty incredible maximum usable frequencies. As a piece of advice to Nathaniel, though, through my study of astrophysics, I have come to figure out that time is God's way of keeping everything from happening all at once, and space is his way of keeping it all from happening to you. W0ASP, back to net.
Very good. Good thought to remember.
Thank you, Terry.
And next on the list is Tom M5EG. Tom, how you doing?
Oh, good evening, Dave, and good evening to everyone in the group. It's been a busy week. Yet another week where I finished up the week and had to rip out and throw away everything done during the week and go back to where we were about 3 weeks ago. So still banging at it, and hopefully we'll make some progress next week. I did find out how the Max 10 IOs worked, and found out, unfortunately, that they don't have on-chip terminating resistors available. Those were in previous versions of the FPGAs. I can only speculate while they don't exist in the Max 10. My guess is probably a cost reduction. Unfortunately, that means we're not going to be able to use LVDS signaling from the receiver to the FPGA, which is kind of a disappointment. We're going to have to use single-ended CMOS signaling, and I don't know what that's going to do to the spurious and the noise in the receiver. And so that there'll be some measurements needed to figure that out. And so I'm rewiring the FPGA inputs again to see if I can get the data piped into a burst pipeline. Time will tell on that. I've got most of the HamSci paper written. Nathaniel, later on, if you want to talk about when the paper deadline is, hopefully it hasn't passed already. Good. And we'll go about that. And then after 22 months on back order, I got an SFP Plus to RJ45 10 gig adapter. And it actually works very well. So took a long time to get it, but that let me get the server hooked up to the network at 10 gigs. So it's a little progress there. Back to the group.
Well, very good. And I believe we've called on everybody. Is anybody not had a chance to give their comments? Nothing heard, so we're going to go to general discussion.
Everybody's been talking about all the snow they've had. It's been warming up here. We took the boat out this weekend, but the downside of that is that what I'll show you. I have a weather station, and let me show you what my anemometer peak reading was when the storms came through here on Friday.
Whoa.
This is the highest peak reading I've ever recorded since I installed the system.
Wow.
70.2. And
For a minute, I thought that was the temperature.
no, that was wind speed here on Friday, about 11:45. Right after that, the power went out and didn't come back until about 6 p.m. So anyway,
Wow.
so we've got our good points and bad points about living here. So back to Ned.
It's not a sailboat, is it, Bill?
It's just at my house.
I was gonna say, if you had a sail up in that, it would be a real interesting day.
Yeah, it probably flipped the boat over, but yeah.
If I might talk to Tom for a moment about this LVDS problem. Yeah, CMOS is going to be a lot more noisy than LVDS. I've been there. Is it merely a matter of terminating lines to the FPGA?
Yes, it is. I looked it up. The dev kit has pads for 100 ohm differential terminating resistors.
Right.
They're not stuck. There's no, the parts are DNI, do not install.
Right.
I looked at the data engine, and it doesn't appear though that there's any place to put 100 ohm terminating resistors on it. And the previous generation of parts had a version of the IO macro where you could put it into differential and it would put an on-chip 100 ohm resistor between those lines.
Right.
And that seems to have dropped out of the Max 10 part for some reason. It's very hard to find that kind of documentation in that Altera has the world's largest collection of broken links. And there doesn't seem
Yeah,
to be,
you could thank Intel for that.
Nothing organized. And what you find is 5-year-old documents on some university website for a class. And that's how you find Altera documentation. So, so I had it all wired up for differential. And then I was trying to figure out which IO buffer to use. And interestingly, the names of the IO buffers in the Quartus tool don't match the names on the FPGA datasheet. And so you have to just kind of guess what Quartus wants to call that IO buffer versus what it's called in the datasheet.
Right.
And so I launched a couple of questions, but didn't get any responses there. Finally figured it out, finally found the Max 10 datasheet and verified it can't do it, which is of course why the dev kit put slots for resistors on the board, right? So that sort of makes sense.
Well,
and
we maybe we can try it both ways on the dev kit, see if we have to modify the
I didn't go through the dev kit to see if every one of the needed lines has got pads for resistors. I didn't check that. But if the receiver appears noisy or has a lot of spurious sampling points, then we'll probably hack up something to try and terminate it and go LVDS. So Scotty wired up all the wires so that it can be pinned out in either mode.
Okay.
And so I suspect everyone was probably surprised by what the Max 10 cannot do.
Yeah, one thought is if the lines are short, we may be able to get away with not terminating them.
Yeah, or maybe just terminating the clock line.
Right.
And the key is, can we find two places on there close enough to each other to get a 100 ohm resistor across the clocks? Right now in the DDR mode, the clock is 122.88, but it samples half the data on the rising edge and the other channel on the falling edge. So you get 245 mega words per second transferred on the DDR. And then the first thing it does is come into the chip and get un-DDR'd. There are macros for doing that on the other FPGAs, but the Max 10 doesn't support that. And so, there's, I don't know exactly how that would work on the Max 10. The other parts have some very high performance IO pins, and those seem to not be there also on the Max 10. So a few things to scratch heads. The data, if it rings, I'm not so worried about it. I'm worried about it in the DDR mode because you have 2 nanoseconds setup and 2 nanoseconds hold time on the data. And
Right.
so there's not a lot of room for any ringing to die down in there.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a matter of try it.
Yeah, so I'll do the CMOS first, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll be pleasantly surprised, and maybe things won't look too awful. If they are, then
Yeah.
we can start running some experiments to see if.
At least it's not parallel CMOS. I had one system that could be set up LVDS serial or parallel 8-bit CMOS. That was very noisy.
Yeah, the
CMOS
CMOS
version.
mode is actually a 16-bit parallel CMOS.
Oh, it
times
is.
2. So there's 30, actually there's 30 parallel CMOS lines.
Oh, okay. And the LVDS is also parallel?
The LVDS is parallel, and it's 16 differential DDR lines instead of 32 single-ended lines. They're the same lines. There's a bit in the chip that tells it which way to behave.
Okay. Yep. Well, yeah, CMOS, because of the swing is so much higher. It's like
Yeah,
10
the
times
CMOS
higher.
swing is about 1.8 volts. And
Oh,
the
okay, right.
LVDS
It's
swing
1.8, but it's
is about 345 millivolts.
right. But it's many dB higher for
Well, yeah, plus with
potential
balance,
noise.
Scotty was real careful laying everything out to preserve differential balance on the lines.
Right.
And so if you terminate those, you get pretty effective cancellation of the fields from the LVDS swings. And I was estimating more than 20 dB of cancellation just due to the differential nature. And then another 20 dB of cancellation due to the reduced voltage. And so I was hoping we'd have a real quiet receiver, and maybe we still do. It may be that they're laid out well enough over ground planes and things that we don't have an issue. Time will tell. I still have
the other thing is that it may be good that we have the development kit version where we can experiment a bit more.
Yeah.
And at least get the data engine running in CMOS mode.
Yeah, so far I have not been able to get the FIFO to synthesize, but I've been monkeying around with the IOs for 2 weeks now. And so hopefully we'll get that. The wideband mode, I think, is how you find the really significant sampling spurs, where you grab raw EDC data at the clock rate and run it into a big long FFT. And if you have any sampling spurs, I think that's where you find them.
Yeah. More shall be revealed.
Yeah. So Nathaniel, what's the status on papers and submissions and all of that? Bring a stick to the conference?
Yeah, I'm also hoping to send out a link. In the past, I've created like a Google Drive link where people could upload it. And I'll probably do the same thing again this year, except I'll probably use Microsoft OneDrive instead of Google Drive because Scranton is a Microsoft shop. So
Okay.
I will send that out. Yeah, probably a couple days right before the conference. I'm going to work on collecting the posters first, which Gary has already been helping with. But I need to try to review some of those this week and try to get those off and printed. And then next week is spring break for me. So then it'll give me a little more time to just kind of get logistics squared away and take care of those details. A little more time.
You look like you need some rest.
I was about to say, I was thinking about going soon because I think I really need to get some sleep.
Yep.
So, but yeah, the Hamsai workshop details, they are coming along. I added a couple more abstracts to the list today. I think we're going to have somewhere around 125 people come to the workshop. So it'll be well attended. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Dave, I'll leave you in charge, okay?
Oh, okay.
All right.
Now I have to go at 9, so.
Okay. Who wants to be in charge?
It's whispers, so nobody's in charge. I'll shut it down at 9.
All right, that sounds good. Well, I'll make you in charge and then I'll say 73.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
73, see ya.
Thanks.
That's 9 my time.
I was going to say we could keep this call going for another 2 hours and
But
20 minutes.
You know, Nathaniel keeps this going all the time, so you guys can use it in between. What we're talking about is the recording.
I have a question for you, Dave. You're in the St. Louis area?
Actually, Columbia, halfway between St. Louis and Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
Right on
So is that
I-70.
west of St. Louis?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just. Yeah, we're looking for a site for one of our receivers in the
yes,
Missouri area.
We have a concentration of both our magnetometers and one professional magnetometer in the area. So if that makes any difference.
Well, just we're looking to site one of our radios with someone who's already into this.
Yeah.
So we may be that's one of the things we'll be doing at the workshop is soliciting interest in some of the sites that we're still trying to fill in.
Well, there's 3 of us here in Columbia that interact regularly. Myself, David, KD0EAG, and Michael, AC0G, who also is often on this list. So there's 3 of us here.
Right. Thanks.
Okay.
Did anyone
Kevin?
catch the WWV presentations on Thursday?
Yeah, they were pretty
I had a
nice.
conflict.
Especially like the history of the station was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch the video because I had a conflict.
Yeah, be advised, the first 13 minutes, they had technical difficulties, so you can skip ahead to minute 13. That's when
No,
Dave.
I figured that one out.
Yep.
I saw, it's just almost, we're waiting for it to start or something like that. And I was thinking, it's not playing. And then I realized, yeah, it's playing. It just hasn't started yet. So I jumped ahead 13 minutes. But yeah, the interesting comment about the MUF right now, the propagation was really a little bit odd today. 10 megahertz was not propagating. 15 through 25 were. Yeah, with this active sun, you never know what you're going to get. I guess it's like a box of chocolates. But like I was on, what was it? Oh, I guess I was on 15 meters last night, making contact with New Zealand. But sometimes that's even 28 will do it. 10 meters.
Yeah, some of the local club members here were amazed that they actually heard something on 10 meters.
Yeah, 10 meters has been quite active lately. Not so much the last maybe couple weeks, but sometimes it goes well into the evening.
I think, like you said earlier, Dave, there was a period, probably 10 or 11 years ago, the bands were good and we're all having a lot of fun. We forgot what that was like through the low period there. Now it's all coming back to us.
Yeah, well, of course, the last cycle was very weak. So I'm not sure the 10 meters really came up the way we expect it to. But this one is looking very good.
Yeah.
To the extent that, well, one of the things where, our local, the New England ARL director is one of his initiatives is to encourage technicians to get on 10 and 6 meters because they have privileges there. And I haven't seen that much activity on 6 lately, but 10, as we're saying, is actually quite active and will be for a while. So it's a good way to get the technicians on and interested in perhaps upgrading.
Yes.
I'm having Ron, what's his call sign? KF7ZN.
Oh.
He's going to give a talk to our club on Saturday on his sun to ionosphere connection.
Oh, very good.
Dave, I forgot to ask before Nathaniel left, since HAMSI is the end of next week, do we know what the plan for the Monday night calls is next week and the week after?
No, we don't know, but I'll make sure that something gets sent out on the list.
Okay.
If it changes.
Yeah.
Because of things with my family, I can't travel, so I'm going to be on the Zoom for the HAMSI. So
all right, it might be good for to get an email about the next 2 Mondays and what the plan is for.
Okay.
Plan is for that.
I'll make sure that gets done.
Oh, thank you.
I expect we certainly would do next Monday in preparation for the workshop, and maybe we want a decompression or a debrief.
Yeah.
The next Monday.
I didn't know
Or
you
maybe
could
we
do
want
that by
a
Zoom.
day off.
Well,
Do we need to pre-register for the, if you want to participate in it by Zoom, Dave?
I have not heard anything.
No, there definitely is, on
Okay.
on the
Is it on
workshop page, the first link is for the live registration, and, a little bit down the page is to register for the Zoom version.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
Well, back to the paper. We'll see y'all
Yep.
next week. Take care.
yep. Any other things?
I'll check out too.
Okay,
you
well, I'll
guys.
go ahead and
Basically,
shut down the
your
recorder.
tea.
Yeah, and if I think about it, when I talk to Nathaniel on the Thursday calls, I'll see what we can do about putting 2 weeks worth of information out on the Tangerine call next week.
Yep.
Okay, everyone have a good night.
Okay. 73.
73, y'all.
Good night.
Good night. 7:30.
73.